I walked out of that glass building with my head down, my tie loose, and rejection ringing in my ears. Thank you for coming. We'll call you. They never call. I'm a single dad. I don't get the luxury of hope. I get bills, school fees, and a little boy waiting at home pretending not to be hungry. The interview was a disaster. I stumbled on one question, then another. When they asked why I had gaps in my resume, I told the truth. I chose my son over overtime when his mother left. I saw the panel exchange looks. Sympathy, maybe. Respect? No. Decisions are made quickly in rooms like that. I stepped outside, sat on the stairs, and stared at my cracked phone. One missed call from my son's school. My heart dropped faster than my confidence. That's when I heard someone shout, "Wait, sir. Please wait." I turned around, confused. People in suits rushed past me every day. No one ever ran toward me. A black luxury car screeched to a stop at the curb. The doors opened, and out stepped the man whose photo hung in the lobby. The billionaire CEO himself. Out of breath, tie undone, eyes locked on me. "You forgot this," he said, holding my resume. I shook my head. "You can keep it. I already failed." He smiled, calm, sharp, different from the others. "No," he said quietly. "You failed the interview. You passed the test." I didn't understand. He told me he'd been watching through the one-way glass. Everyone focused on my answers. He focused on why I answered the way I did. When asked about overtime, I chose my son. When asked about pressure, I talked about bedtime stories and packed lunches. "Skills can be taught," he said. "Character can't." Then he said the words that flipped my life upside down. "I don't need another employee. I need a leader who remembers what matters. Come back tomorrow." Executive floor. I thought he was joking. Billionaires don't chase failed interviewees. But the next morning, my name was on the list. My badge worked. My desk overlooked the city. 3 months later, I could afford my son's school trip without counting coins. 6 months later, I was leading a team. 1 year later, the CEO invited me to dinner, not to talk business but to ask how my son was doing. He leaned back and said something I'll never forget. "The world is full of qualified people. It's starving for good parents." That interview didn't fail me. It filtered everyone else out. And sometimes, when you walk away thinking you lost everything, that's the exact moment life runs after you. The executive floor felt unreal. Glass walls, silent hallways, people who spoke softly but carried power in every step. I kept thinking someone would tap my shoulder and say, "Sorry, wrong floor." They didn't. Instead, an assistant handed me a tablet and said, "The CEO wants you in the conference room." My hands shook as I entered. The same billionaire sat at the head of the table, calm, focused, unreadable. Around him were senior executives who had ignored me the day before. He looked at me and said, "Tell them what time your son wakes up." The room went quiet. I swallowed. 6:30. Earlier if he has a bad dream. Someone chuckled awkwardly. The CEO didn't smile. "How many meetings have you missed because of him?" "More than I can count." "How many chances did you lose?" I hesitated. "All the important ones." He nodded, then turned to the room. And yet he still showed up, still prepared, still honest. That's resilience. Then he surprised everyone. "I'm putting him in charge of the new operations unit." Gasps, whispers, side glances. One executive finally spoke. "Sir, with respect, he failed the interview." The CEO leaned forward, voice cold but steady. "No. He failed your checklist. Not my vision." That day wasn't easy. Some coworkers tested me. Others ignored me. A few wanted me gone. But every night, I went home, helped my son with homework, and told him, "Dad's trying." Weeks passed. One evening, I stayed late fixing a problem no one else wanted. Data messy, deadlines tight. I solved it, not with fancy degrees, but with patience learned from bedtime math lessons and scraped knees. The next morning, my inbox exploded. "Great work. How did you see that? Can you lead this project too?" By the end of the month, the same people who doubted me were asking for guidance. One night, as I packed up, the CEO walked by and said quietly, "They're starting to follow you." I smiled, tired. "I'm just doing my job." He shook his head. "No. You're doing what leaders do, lifting while carrying weight." At home, my son hugged me and said, "Dad, you're smiling again." I realized then this wasn't just a job. This was the second chance I never asked for, and the responsibility I refused to waste. Success didn't arrive quietly. It knocked loud and demanded payment. The project I was leading started bleeding money. Not because of mistakes, but because someone inside was sabotaging timelines, feeding wrong numbers, and letting me take the blame. Late nights turned into early mornings. Coffee replaced sleep. My son started falling asleep on the couch waiting for me. One night, his teacher called. "He's been quiet lately," she said. "He says you're always tired." That sentence hurt more than any insult at work. The next morning, I walked into the office to find an emergency meeting called. Senior executives, legal team, the CEO at the head of the table silent. Charts on the screen, red arrows, loss projections. "This falls under your unit," someone said. Eyes fixed on me. I stood up, heart pounding. "I'll take responsibility," I said. "But I won't take blame for something I didn't do." The room froze. I asked for 1 hour. Some laughed. Some rolled their eyes. The CEO raised his hand. "Give it to him." That hour felt like war. I traced emails, logs, access times, details everyone else ignored. Years of fixing broken toys and budget groceries had taught me one thing. Patterns never lie. I walked back into the room with proof. A name. A motive. A trail too clean to be accidental. Silence again, but heavier this time. The executive responsible stood up, face pale. He didn't deny it. Security escorted him out. After the meeting, the CEO stopped me in the hallway. "You could have stayed quiet," he said. "Protected yourself." I nodded. "My son watches how I handle pressure. I won't teach him fear." That evening I went home early, cooked dinner, helped with homework, listened instead of rushing. My son looked at me and said, "Did you win today?" I smiled. "No. I did the right thing." He hugged me tighter than usual. The next morning, an email went company-wide. But the biggest reward wasn't the title. It was knowing that when everything was on the line, I chose integrity and didn't lose my family in the process. And that's when I realized the real interview had just ended. Life finally slowed, just enough for me to breathe. But the universe doesn't let you rest too long. One Friday evening, my son tugged my sleeve. "Daddy, come outside," he said. "I want to show you something." We walked to the park near our apartment. He pointed to a small group of kids playing soccer. "I'm captain today," he said proudly, "and I picked you as my coach." I laughed, the first real laugh in weeks. That night, as I tucked him into bed, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not because work was easy, not because money came, but because I realized that the moments I fought for, the bedtime stories, the homework, the small dinners, were the real victories. Then my phone buzzed. A text from the CEO. "Board meeting tomorrow. Present your unit's quarterly report." I looked at my son. He smiled. I smiled back. "We've got this." The next day, I walked into the boardroom. Confident, prepared, tired but unstoppable. Every executive, every senior manager, every investor looked at me. The same room that once ignored me now waited for my direction. I spoke, clearly, concisely, honestly. Charts, numbers, strategies, but also stories. The small things, the human moments that made the unit succeed. By the end of the meeting, there was applause. The CEO leaned back, nodded, and whispered, "You're not just leading a unit. You're leading the culture of this company." I walked back to my office, exhausted but alive. I looked out at the city skyline, and for the first time in years, I felt like I belonged. Not because of a title, a salary, or recognition, but because I never gave up on what mattered most. At home, my son hugged me tightly and whispered, "Daddy, you're my hero." I realized then that life doesn't reward the perfect, the smartest, or the fastest. It rewards the ones who keep moving forward, who fight even when it seems impossible, and who never forget the people they love along the way. And sometimes, just sometimes, walking away from failure is the very thing that leads you straight into your greatest success. Months had passed since that failed interview. Life had transformed in ways I never imagined. The office, once a battlefield, now felt like home. I had built a team that respected me, not because I outranked them, but because I cared. Every decision I made balanced numbers with humanity. Every project carried the same care I gave my son's bedtime routine. One evening, as I locked up, the CEO called me into his office. "I've been watching," he said, leaning back in his chair. "You didn't just survive. You thrived. And you never let ambition blind you from what matters most." I smiled, humbled. He handed me an envelope. "Consider this a small token. You've earned it." Inside was a promotion letter, a bonus, and a personal note. "You didn't just fix a unit. You reminded us all why this company exists. To support people, not just profits." At home, my son ran into my arms. "Daddy, we did it," he shouted. I held him tight, realizing the truth. The interview I failed wasn't the end. It was the beginning of everything that truly mattered: love, trust, integrity, and the courage to keep going. And in that moment, I understood. Sometimes life only catches you when you're brave enough to walk away.